No one has ever forced you to do anything. That's important. No torture, no cells, no direct coercion. And yet, you still do what you're told. You get up when you're supposed to. You pay when they demand it. You stay silent when you'd be better off speaking up. The strangest thing isn't that people obey. That's understandable. Power, fear, money. The strangest thing is that obedience is often a choice they make themselves, with relief, sometimes with gratitude. In the 1960s, psychologist Stanley Milgram conducted an experiment that to this day no one can fully explain. Ordinary people, not sadists, not soldiers, willingly inflicted pain on a stranger because someone in a white coat said, "Go on." He didn't threaten them, he simply said it. The question isn't why people fear authority. The question is, why do they seek it out when no one is forcing them to? Freedom is, in theory, what everyone wants. Revolutions are fought for it. Songs are sung about it. Constitutions are rewritten for it. But if you look closely at how people actually organize their lives, the picture is different. Most people in most historical eras lived within rigid hierarchies, and not because they couldn't break free, but because they didn't want to. Because hierarchy provided what freedom does not. Here is the real question of this video. If freedom is a good thing, why do people so willingly give it up? And why are systems of control, religious, political, corporate, not imposed by force, but accepted voluntarily, often with enthusiasm? This isn't a question about weak people. It's a question about how human beings are fundamentally wired. And the answer here is uncomfortable, because it concerns you personally, right now. Common sense, of course, has already prepared an explanation. Let's see how honest it is. The standard version goes something like this. People obey out of fear or out of ignorance. They've been brainwashed by the church, propaganda, the education system. They don't realize they're being used. If someone explained it to them, if they saw the truth, they would rise up. This explanation seems convincing because it's flattering. It divides the world into the sighted, those who have understood, and the blind, those who have not yet understood. It assumes that obedience is a mistake, a failure, a pathology. A normal person, they say, chooses freedom. In this logic, dictators are villains who have deceitfully seized power over unfortunate victims, and religious institutions are manipulators who exploit the fear of death, and so on. In part, this is true. Fear works. Lies work. Propaganda works. None of these tools is a figment of the imagination. But here's the catch. This model doesn't explain why submission persists even when there is no fear. Why do people defend systems that restrict them? Why, once they gain freedom, do they often not know what to do with it and seek a new structure to replace the old one? It sounds reasonable, but something doesn't add up here. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. East Germans got what they supposedly wanted: freedom, reunification, the end of the regime. A few years passed, and sociologists observed a phenomenon they called ostalgie, nostalgia for the East. Former citizens of the GDR missed those days, not for the surveillance or the shortages, but for the sense of a comprehensible world where everything was in its place, where the state looked after you. This is not an isolated case. After the collapse of the USSR, millions of people said in surveys that life was better under Soviet rule, and these were people who remembered perfectly well what life was like under Soviet rule. The counterexample here isn't that freedom is bad, it's that freedom is a burden, a psychological one, an existential one. It demands that you decide for yourself who you are, why you live, and what to do tomorrow. Submission isn't always a defeat. Sometimes it's a choice, a rational exchange. You give up autonomy and receive structure, meaning, and freedom from anxiety. Then another question arises. What exactly in the human psyche makes this exchange so appealing? Erich Fromm wrote the book Escape from Freedom in 1941, just as the Germans were voluntarily handing over power to Hitler. Fromm posed a question that seemed inappropriate at the time. What if that was what they wanted? His answer, freedom breeds anxiety. When you were free, you were alone. You were responsible for your own life. There is no structure to tell you whether you are living correctly. This is unbearable for most people, not because they are weak, but because humans are social animals who, evolutionarily speaking, are not designed for radical autonomy. The brain is wired such that uncertainty is pain, literally. Neurobiologists have shown that uncertainty activates the same areas of the brain as a physical threat. An authoritarian structure eliminates uncertainty. It says, here are the rules, here are the enemies, here is the meaning. It is a neurobiological analgesic. Now, slow down, because it gets more interesting from here on. Take a look at the corporate culture of major tech companies. Google, Apple, Tesla. They don't just hire people, they create a comprehensive environment. Offices with food, gyms, and laundry facilities. Missions like changing the world. Internal rituals, values, and a shared language. Employees work 60 to 80 hours a week, voluntarily, with pride. This is the same structure as a church. The institution takes away autonomy, working hours, mental energy, personal boundaries, and in return offers identity, meaning, and a sense of belonging to the chosen ones. The difference between a cult fanatic and a loyal Apple employee isn't in the mechanism. The difference is in legitimacy. One society calls it normal, the other calls it pathological, but the psychological process is the same. And now, a marginal example that explains why the mechanism works even where you least expect it. In 1978, in Jonestown, Guyana, 918 people drank poison on the orders of their leader, Jim Jones. Most did so voluntarily. Before that, they had been joining his organization of their own accord for years, giving away their possessions and isolating themselves from their families. These were not mentally ill people. They were teachers, nurses, activists, people who were searching for meaning and found it. Jones provided structure, a mission, and a sense of brotherhood. The price turned out to be horrific, but the entry mechanism was the same as in any other hierarchy. What's frightening isn't that this happened to them. What's frightening is how similar the entry point is to everything else around us. Now look at it from above. Every stable society in history has been built on the same foundation. People voluntarily give up some of their autonomy in exchange for a structure that solves the problem of meaning. This is not a mistake. It is the main operating system of human civilization. That's how the government works. Not only through coercion, but through identity. We are a nation. We have a flag, an anthem, a history, and enemies. You belong to something bigger than yourself. It's the same deal as in a church, a corporation, or a gang. Political ideologies, left, right, nationalist, religious, all offer the same product. A ready-made picture of the world where it is clear who you are, who are yours, who are the enemies, and what to do. Those who buy this painting most willingly are not the stupidest of the rest. They just feel the anxiety of uncertainty more acutely. Here is a paradox of power that is rarely stated directly. The most stable control systems are those in which the controlled sincerely consider themselves free, because they chose this system, because it meets a real psychological need. Coercion is expensive and unstable. Consent is cheap and self-reproducing. Smart power systems do not force, they create conditions under which people themselves want to obey. This is the real mechanics of control, not a whip, not a cage, and the lack of meaning is an offer to fill it. If you think that this is a description of some other people, those who are simpler, who have not figured it out, then you have just done exactly what any hierarchy does. You have found your identity through distancing yourself from the blind. Welcome to the structure.
That's what it really means. The conversation about power and subordination is usually conducted in terms of oppression. Someone bad is holding someone good. You need to get free and everything will be fine. But if the psychological mechanism works the way we have analyzed, then liberation does not solve the problem. It creates a vacuum, and the vacuum is immediately filled with a new structure. Sometimes it's better than the old one. Sometimes it's worse. The French Revolution destroyed the monarchy and gave birth to Napoleon. The Russian Revolution destroyed the Tsar and gave birth to Stalin. This is not a coincidence. This is psychological logic. People don't stop needing structure because they destroy its specific form. The new optics here are as follows. The question is not how to get rid of subordination, but what conditions make subordination less destructive. Systems that provide structure without a monopoly on meaning. Hierarchies that do not require disabling critical thinking as a condition of membership. This is not a utopia. This is an engineering challenge, and it's much more complicated than just down with tyrants.
The next time you feel that some idea, group, or system is giving you a sense of clarity, that everything is falling into place, that you finally understand how the world works, stop for a second. Not because it's necessarily a trap. Maybe it's just the truth. But that's how everyone who follows the prophet feels. Everyone who joins the party. Everyone who finds their church. The feeling of clarity is not proof of the truth. It's a symptom that someone has solved your anxiety problem. Question: who exactly, and what is the price?